This is the Manny Matsakis Show with me, Manny Matsakis, where you will gain insight on how to win on the field and optimize your life. This is episode number 3. Today, we're going to interview AJ Smith. AJ Smith is a football coach and entrepreneur extraordinaire. He has most recently been the receivers coach of the undefeated XFL Houston Roughnecks. They were 5-0, so it's very rare in professional football to go undefeated until the coronavirus basically shut down sports as we know it in the United States. Coach Smith has a lot of connections. He's worked with some really good people. I mean, June Jone most recently, as he was the head coach of the Houston Roughnecks. He's worked with Hal Mummy. He spent quite a bit of time with some great coaches in his career. Let's take a look at an interview I did with him in my office. It was last spring of 2019 when he came to Defiance, Ohio to visit on a few things. Welcome to the Manny Matsakis Show. And today I have a special guest for you that in many ways is a kindred spirit with myself, primarily because we both have a very good friend by the name of Jason Phillips. And Jason is not only the best receiver coach I've ever seen, he's also in the Ring of Honor at the University of Houston and has had some great jobs coaching, and he's just a wonderful guy that my guest today was introduced to me simply like, hey, you got to meet this guy. And, a few years ago, he was young, but now he's 30 years old and extremely experienced in the world of coaching football. And I would like to introduce to you Austin James Smith. How's it going, AJ?
Going pretty good. Thanks for having me, man. It's going to be a fun deal. Enjoy these camera angles when I get every action of this.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, the thing about this is one thing I can really appreciate about you right now is you're very humble. You really get the game. You've been working with a lot of masters of the game, and where a lot of guys I see out there, and it's not even by age, but it just happens to be some younger guys, they get out there and they're so locked into me, and they don't really get like the path to mastery comes by making sure you're focusing in the proper direction. And you have really focused on a few things, and really, I'm just so impressed, and have always been impressed when we've had a chance to visit. What are the things you think about the most when you wake up in the morning, and you want to focus on what? What is it that really gets you excited to wake up every day?
I think it's just getting better, specifically when you're with a team. How can you because we all as coaches, if we could tell our players what we know, we'd all be, champions, national champs, whatever it is. How can I impose my attitude, my will, my desire, my love for the game to my players to feel that same exact way? Because I know if I could be in someone's shoes that are talented enough at quarterback to throw it 60, 70 yards, just something like that, I'd be up like the Mamba Mentalities, the Kobe Bryant book that he wrote out that I love. Man, why aren't you up at 3 and 4 a.m. getting 2 to 3 practices a day opposed to the guy you're going to play that's getting 1? It's only a amount of time before it's not comparable when you're the best in the world. So I just think, waking up, how to get an edge, but more so, how can I get this to my players? Because at the end of the day, this is the guy that has to go execute. It's not me. I'm not making the throws. It's the players. So, it's the right time and place, being with the right people, and how to make them better.
Mm-hmm. I can certainly understand that, and it's in many ways I like to say, hey, this guy's really wise beyond his years, because there's so many times, like I can personally attest to this. I was at Emporia State around your age as a head coach at a Division II school, did it really young, and I was into so many things. I was all over the place. Now I had a focus with my offense per se, but I had so many other things going on. And I think when looking at you, it reminds me a little bit of some of the stuff I did, because you have other things going on, but the beauty of it is it all ties together in that one direction, all focused towards coaching football. I mean, tell us a little bit about a few of the things you have going on that inspire you to keep on the path toward mastery of coaching.
Yeah, it's all pointed in one direction, and I think it's easy to get that way as a coach as long as you stay true to yourself. There's coaches out there job chasing, and you're going from wishbone to spread to West Coast, like you're not getting to who you are, who your identity is going to be. It was 2010. I was kind of that way. I had 6 different offenses in. I thought I was a genius, but we were know of all and a master of none. And it was 2010, and I'll never forget when I was looking at, man, I have 2 great slots. What offense could I run? And I'm Googling on the internet, and this is right as YouTube is becoming something. And, man, I saw the Houston Gamblers, and I saw the quick motion, and I just saw the boom, boom, boom half rollouts, and I learned what the run and shoot was. And that year, we blew it up, and we're throwing for 400, 500-yard games, breaking national record, and I said, I love this. And so ever since that moment, I said, everything's pointed here. So I immediately started going from there to June Jones at SMU in the spring practices because I want to know and see everything they're doing.
Oh, you didn't just like go download a run and shoot playbook and you had it all figured out?
No, I'm not going to look at the mother's basements, playbooks that are out there. I wanted the hands-on experience. And luckily, my biggest mentor in coaching in the beginning was Johnny Booty because he's known me since I was 1 year old.
Okay.
Has a son my age. Played college football with John Jenkins, University of Arkansas. So when I said run and shoot, he said, oh, well, one of my great buddies is John Jenkins. And I said, well, can I get his phone number? That's how that relationship got started. And I'd call him once a week. And, I mean, that all led to that great year I had because SMU took one of my receivers that led the state. And so from that point on, everything run and shoot, throwing the football, and it got me pointed towards air raid as well because it's all the same thing. We're going to pass to set up the run. That's pretty much it. So, schemes, whatnot, that's going to be our identity. So now, with things that are going on, besides just the coaching aspect, I've created a tool with virtual reality that's geared towards the quarterback to make him better, right? And what's it specifically doing is making him throw better so he can see the coverages, so he can see leverage, so he can see green grass windows. Anything to make the quarterback better, this is it. This is geared towards what I want. I host the one-back clinic. I brought that out, a collaboration of great coaches from all over the nation that come to talk about throwing the football. Now we bring that one coach in that talks about running the football, so the other coaches are happy about it. But it's specifically, hey, all touchdown passes. Yeah. And so those are a few things.
Yeah, and they all stack in the right direction. I think that's the beauty of this because there's a certain synergy. I think regardless of what you're into as a coach, if you can stack everything in the right direction, you will gain momentum. And I always look at it, an analogy I give our coaches is, you look at this wheel, and here's this concept of this deal, and this much, right? And as long as you're focused in the right direction and you get more knowledge and it's all really focused, the wheel gets bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And as it starts to go down the hill, it starts to gain more momentum, and it's like it's a runaway train, which I think one time it was on USA Today, the old newspaper that, when you used to read those things. I remember there was a quote by John Jenkins, and it was after one of their games. And he said, this offense is a runaway train. So it's like, it's bizarre that I remember that just now. And it's like, if you want to make your life in coaching a runaway train, you stay focused on what you want to do and make sure that you try to eliminate as many things and say no to things that really don't put you in the direction you want to go to. Have you had to say no to a few things?
Yeah, I mean, certain jobs that aren't in my best interest to go run a different style scheme that's not geared towards what I want to be. I think in coaching, you do create identity in who you are. And so, here I am, trying to get on this path to be an OC, to be some of these mentors we've mentioned and get on their path. And, but here's a job that maybe pays $40,000 more than what I'm making to go be a tight end coach at a West Coast offense. It's just, it's not being true to myself.
It's tough to say no, right?
It's money, but two, I'm going to be miserable, you know. So it's come up.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you say that. I know, we hadn't met yet at this point, but I was coaching at Bethany College in Kansas at the time at an NAIA school, and I think right when that year I took the job, you had taken an OC job in our conference, right? And I thought, oh, that's pretty good. And we didn't know each other at that point. We did not know each other. And I just remember maybe you emailed me. We had some dialogue. There was something there, maybe through something happened that we had some connection, right? And then you left before the season ever started. And we had a conversation. And I think I want you to be transparent about it. You walked into a situation. How old were you then?
24.
24 years old, going to be an offensive coordinator in college right, at 24 years old, and you said, this isn't for me. All right? And just tell us why you made that decision.
Well, it was tough, being young.
I'll tell the truth.
Yeah.
I want to know it all.
I mean, it was simple. I thought it was going to get restricted with what I could do.
In what way?
And just, hey, we're going to use a tight end here. And I started getting in some plays and stuff that's going to happen. And I was just like, man, if I'm not going to, I'm moving from my home in Louisiana, never left the state before, coming to Kansas. And just 2 years ago, I knew what worked and I knew how I got on the path I wanted to. And then I spent a few days. And, the realization of NAIA started to hit me a little bit of the rules. Like I realized I wasn't going to have my quarterback all summer. And, camp was 2 weeks before your first deal. I just didn't know any of that stuff at 24 because I'd been at Northwestern State and UL Lafayette. And so it just hit me. I don't think, if we're wanting to put the head coach's offense in and my offense in, there's not enough time to do all that. And, just was like, man, this isn't going to be it. I'm going to go back and continue my GA-ship at UL Lafayette.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting because most guys say, here's an opportunity. I don't care. I'm going to make a name for myself. And you walked away and you basically stayed the path because I have seen so many times a coach gets out there and deals exactly with that. And I think some guys are built one way and they can handle, give me all this input, even if it, I will, what was the word I remember some guys saying? It was like, I'll just figure it out and we'll morph my offense into what you want, that kind of thing. And I've never seen anybody really successful at the highest levels doing that. It's always like somebody that's appeasing somebody that may be their boss. And I think that makes it difficult because it makes it tough to wake up. It probably makes it tough to sleep at night. That had to be a very difficult time for you to go through that process.
It was short-lived. I mean, I was out of there it was less than a week.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of, you go through an interview process and you're told you're going to get a bunch of things and then you show up and it's not what it's promised. And what helped there too, I hadn't signed a contract. It was testing the water, seeing how it was going to be. And then, what was going to be summer workouts aren't there at all. And it wasn't what it's going to, what the painted picture was shown to me to get the job. Yeah. So, it ain't it. Then just got to,
stay the path. And I think if you have the right purpose, you can certainly help you make the right directions. I mean, that's whatever your purpose is. I think the motto of all this story is like, find a way to get in the direction where you want to go. You may be adjusting the path along the way as you see some things, and that's totally fine. I can appreciate that because I've seen some guys that have done that. I think what's interesting also about AJ is you have been able, you talk about hey, you get John Jenkins's phone number, right? And then you build that relationship, and you're friends to this day, and you've gotten a chance to be around him and really get some insights that even guys that have coached with him never got, because I know he's been very, very private in the ways that he used to install the offense even. It's like I know guys that have coached with him. I don't personally know John. I know guys that have coached with him who are like, oh, well, the receivers know this, the backs know this, the line knows this, but none of them ever all know everything. It was just him. And you've been able to tap into the mind of one of the geniuses of our game, regardless of what anybody sees. You look statistically, very few guys have done what John has done. And you've been able to tap into that by building a great relationship and to get information that you've been able to utilize, to your benefit. So how would a guy that's out there, anybody, young coach, it could be a guy in his 50s, 60s that wants to get into something and find a way to do that. How in the world can somebody do that? I mean, it literally could be anything. It could be like, oh, hey, I love what Army does. How can I get involved in that so I could start in the path toward mastery in that? So what are some tips, advice you may give somebody?
I think timing's big, to try to go have, Dabo Swinney be your mentor right now. That's tough, but and timing and then being genuine with it, because people like John Jenkins and anybody that's ever put a dent in the game, they get hit up by everybody. And, when I was calling him, I called him just, hey, I want to learn to run and shoot. At that point, anybody you're trying to meet is kind of screening you. Who is this guy? Is he wanting just my information? Is he really going to use it? Is this guy saying he wants to learn this, and then I look at his film and he's in the eye running the power. There's some, I don't know if ego, but there's some. Those guys want to feed into people that are actually going to do what they tell them. And so what this hit it off with less than knowing John for about a year, because we met. I got to coach an all-star game with them, which we won 63-13. But during that time, because he called me up, hey, come do this all-star game with me in Little Rock. I was calling him every week, once a week. I put it in my made sure calendar I was going to call coach once a week. And I had went to a website that sent me all the Houston Gamblers film. And so this was before YouTube. And so I was watching DVDs of each game. So I'd call him each game and be like, hey, coach, do you remember this play you called in 1985? And, why was Clarence doing this? Why was Richard in? He loved that because it just kind of circled, and now he's remembering things he had forgotten. And, again, it was genuine. I really wanted to learn. And so then, that year I was offensive coordinator again, and I sent him the tape when we threw for 5 touchdowns in one quarter. And, he's seeing choice route. He's seeing things he's taught me. He's like, oh, yeah. And so, 10 years later, he's like a dad to me.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and you've always spoken very highly of Coach Jenkins, and I think it's interesting because, our mutual friend Jason Phillips, played for him, and it's interesting. I get a player's perspective, and he certainly respects John, and, and I just, it's funny how a guy like Coach Jenkins has been able to influence so many people, but yet when you really look at it, there's just a handful of guys that I bet that he can really trust and truly open up to. And some of those guys are his former players, and you certainly have been able to do that with him. So let's shift gears a little bit, and we'll stay in the run and shoot path, okay? Because that's and I don't know if you agree with this, but it's interesting. The run and shoot is a type of offense that there's a lot of people that really like to study it. I'm sure it's all over the internet and all these types of things, because if you search, Google it, you're going to get all kinds of stuff on there, right? But there's very few people that really know it, that really understand it. And there's certain things that, there's variations, But we had an interesting conversation the other day. You had said, well, if you're going to be run and shoot, you must be able to do this, in your estimation of it. Give us your definition of what you believe somebody that is, you would consider, hey, this is a run and shoot guy.
I think the first and foremost thing is dedicating to 10 personnel. Because that's what the whole craze, hey, they don't have a tight end in the game. And so some people get lost in that, wanting to put a tight end and everything. So I think 10 personnel. And then I think the second thing, to really be a run and shoot team, you want to use that, as your team name, like any other offense, is the half rollout. And whether it's an angle drop, but you're going to move the pocket as a basis, maybe, have some quick game and you flip and rip, or 3-step drop, that's all here and there. But, as a base, you're going to move the pocket with your protection. I think those are two critical. Now, one that's kind of evolved is I used to think, hey, you primarily need to run from its purest form, which is under center, which I think it operates the best out of. And, but June and those guys have gotten to the gun, and that was one of the first things they did, the red gun, and Coach Glanville made them get back there. But there's a lot of merit to still being under center, which they would mix up primarily for your run game. So if you're doing two of those three things, I think you can definitely label yourself run and shoot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that makes a bunch of sense. I mean, the more you think about it, because there's so many, I don't know, like just Google run and shoot offense, football run and shoot, and you're going to see guys, and then when I turn their film, I'm like, what in the world? It's nowhere near it. Have you ever run into that?
I think a big misconception is, hey, I put an option route in, I'm run and shoot. Well, West Coast offense has option routes. Bill Walsh was doing it. Hal's doing it. Mike's. They all have some type of option route in. Run and shoot. Let's go back to the basis of Tiger Ellison. Let's look what that really means. And, it's not it. And
no.
This is a big misconception. That's all it takes is an option route,
Yeah, you're right. And, you bring up Tiger Ellison, and that's interesting that you brought his name up. And I don't know if we've ever had these conversations, but it's like when I was at Kansas State and I had finished my master's, had started my doctorate, okay, and I was coaching for Bill Snyder. And my doctorate, the dissertation was on the history and evolution of the run and shoot offense in American football. Right? And it was in the School of Curriculum and Instruction at K-State. So I'm studying this stuff, and I go literally on a path, and I go to Middletown, Ohio. I meet this newspaper guy named Jerry Nardiello. He ran the Middletown newspaper. And he starts giving me all this stuff, the newspaper articles on Tiger Ellison and all this stuff. And at the time, I didn't even know if he was alive or what the story was, any of this kind of stuff. And lo and behold, he's living in Center City, Florida. Right? And he gets me his phone number. Right? So I call Coach Ellison. And we end up spending hours on the phone. I take a plane trip down to meet him. And Center City back then was a retirement community where he was. And he brings out his film, which wasn't film like someone my age would think film, the canisters of film. It was what he used to call it celluloid, okay, which was the real tiny, the 8mm film was what they had. And he was showing me, and this stuff would bubble up, and, it was old, from when he was at Middletown High School. And had created the run and shoot offense. Now, it's a great book. Everybody should read his book if you're interested in it. And there are applications even to this day, if you go back to the original run and shoot stuff, because that's where Mouse got the inspiration to create his version of the run and shoot. And I can remember Tiger telling me, he said, you know what? Mouse, he just loves to pass the ball all the time, but in the original run and shoot, it was an offense that, as Mouse used to say, you pick your poison. It was 50-50 potential of run and pass. And for the first 3 steps of the quarterback, the defense should not know if you're going to run or pass the football. That was the run and shoot. Now, obviously, it started with this lonesome polecat, and then in the offseason, he created the Gangster series, the Cowboy series, all this stuff from that, and it was awesome to hear him talk about it. And something that a lot of people, that I certainly did not know, is a lot of people never knew about him was he had so much success there. Right? He was a great public speaker, and he gets hired by the most runningest coach around, which is Woody Hayes.
Yeah.
Right? He became an assistant for Woody Hayes, and he was the brain coach at Ohio State, which was like the academic guy, and he was like a confidant to Coach Hayes. And so he makes a statement to me in Florida, and he goes, you know what? When I had Rex Kern, I'm thinking Rex Kern, hold on, the quarterback at Ohio State in 1969 when Ohio State beat USC, Southern Cal, and they had O.J. Simpson for the national championship. He goes, I had 3 touchdowns in that game were run and shoot plays. Okay, I'm thinking like, you know, at that point, Tiger's older. Maybe he's, who knows? I got to verify this. And so he tells me, I think the AD was June Jone or something at Ohio State. He says, you tell him to get you the film. So I wrote a letter, because back then the internet wasn't there, right? So I literally wrote a letter to the athletic director at Ohio State, right? And I said, look, Coach Ellison wanted me to ask for that season, the Ohio State season. Couple weeks go by, I'm at Kansas State. Here's this package from Ohio State and a letter back from the athletic director. And I'm like, and a buddy of mine who ended up coaching with, Dana Dimmel, is there. And he sees Ohio State. He's from Columbus, Ohio, Upper Arlington High School, where Jack Nicklaus went to school, right? The Golden Bears, right? So he looks at Ohio State and goes, there's no way. What is this? You know, and I remember he opened the letter up and he sees the AD's signature and he like licks his thumb and goes, this is just a, stamp. And it was a real, like he had autographed he signed the letter. And it was like, oh my goodness, what is in here? So we start cracking the VHS tapes and start looking through the film, and lo and behold, it was like, here's the Gangster series. All this stuff was in there. And Rex Kern, they won a national championship at Ohio State then. And Woody loved it. Just was really more of a downhill ground and pound type of offense, but it was his way to change things up. And it was just awesome. There's like, most people don't know that actually happened at Ohio State with Coach Ellison influencing him. So I don't know, pretty neat deal. I mean, did you know that?
No, I didn't. And, when I first got into it, that was the first book I purchased, just not knowing anything. Like, I found through Google, hey, this is where it originated, or it's just kind of like the Bible. Let's get to Genesis first.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I just wanted that knowledge, him coming from the 60s. And it always kind of ties back with coaches like you I've been able to talk to. In one conversation, like with Jerry, somehow Tiger got brought up, and he goes, oh, yeah, well, you should imagine when I was coaching against them in high school, because I was the first one to see it. The stories like that, all kind of circles back, but more so than stories is the philosophy. And, whatever the defense does is wrong. If the run and shoot had a slogan, I think that's what the slogan should be. Whatever you do is wrong, defense. So just go ahead and line up, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. And as we talk about these legends of the game, and to me, they're titans of the game in many ways. But you talk about a guy like Jerry Glanville, who's from Ohio, and his story. How old is Jerry now?
78.
78. Young for a pro coach, right?
Maybe 77. He'll be 78 when the XFL starts. Going to be the defensive coordinator in Tampa Bay for Tressman. Right. Yeah. So still in it.
What was that like? You're sitting there, you're working, alongside Jerry, or you got to know him so well and all this. How did you and Jerry Glanville get connected? How did that all happen?
It's about being genuine and timing.
Yeah.
So who am I genuinely? Well, we've been talking about it. Run and shoot.
Yeah.
Here's John Jenkins. Here's June Jones. That's what I've been doing for about 3 to 4 years. Jerry comes in at UL Lafayette. The same time that Kansas thing happened, he was the reason why it happened. He comes down and he's going to coach the defensive coaches. So he's mentoring all these defensive coaches. I'm over here working on the offensive side of the ball. So I go in there, just the GA, and then I go up to him and I said, hey, Jeff Reinbold, he used to always say this to you. Or, he always used to talk about you. And he was like, you know Sun God?
Sun God?
Yeah, that's what Jerry has a nickname for everybody.
Okay.
So because he'd always go surf at Hawaii after every practice in the morning. So he's the Sun God. Okay. And so and he's like, tell me, who are you? And we started talking. And then I had a question for him football wise. I always got to have football questions. Don't just be the guy that's nice to shake your hand. Yeah. Ask him something schematically. Okay. Mm-hmm. Another big advice. Don't just, because there's some coaches that have even reach out to me that, they want to just, hey, you see you run and shoot all and talk, and they never ask me one schematic question. So we're not talking ball ever. We're just shooting it. And so immediately asked him a schematic question. And he was answering, no, I'd like this. And I remember just one concept. He asked me, he goes, so, hey, you know what Nebraska is? And I said, which happened to be his favorite play. I'm like, yeah, it's the curl, sit, swing. And he goes, you know my offense better than I do. He turns around and goes, this guy knows my offense better than me. And so from that point on, and there was one last thing I said to him that I won't forget because it became like our theme, because then he invited me to be at the East-West Shrine game after that. Because then I got it from Jeff Reinbold. And I was saying, we were talking about this play, and I said, you know what Jeff used to always say, with everything, and he's like, what? And I said, we got to get back to the deal, which was something Mouse used to say, something Jerry loved to say. So when he said, the deal is real. And then we always talked about the deal forever. I mean, even in our playbook in the Strong game, it said the deal for offense, because when he was the head coach. So, I mean, it was an immediate connection because I was being true to what I wanted to go down that path. And you've been saying, so just natural. Now, if I'd have met him earlier without that, and he would have been in there when I was, 21 or 20 as a young coach, it wouldn't have happened. So this timing and just a genuine connection from that point.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. I mean, Jerry Glanville is, I think the man in black, the whole deal with the Falcons. And I mean, it's amazing what that guy's pulled off, and he's still at the top of his game. That's what people don't realize. When you went up to Hamilton, was it, right? And what'd you notice about his defense up there?
Yeah, well, it was one of the he always has every stat ready, but he led the league in least amount of yards run by about 2 yards, I want to say. Wow. And so, one of the top defenses in the country in Canada, and still has it.
Yeah, he does. There's no doubt.
He's yeah.
It's interesting because you look at guys, and I see it more in the pros than anywhere else, is these masters of the game, and they get better like when they hit their 70s. You notice that? Guys like Dick LeBeau, I mean, the list can go on and on. The great O-line coaches, the O-line coach for the Patriots that just retired. I mean, you start looking at these guys, Shermer, when he was a defensive coordinator up at the Packers, all these guys, they just were like, they have an innate sense when they've been focusing on the same direction for so long, they know something is about to happen, like a chess master is always 2 or 3 steps ahead in his move, and you've been fortunate to be around some of those guys, which I think will definitely benefit you as you move on in your career, because you can compress time, and I think, do you feel as if you can't compare yourself to anybody else. It's just you. How do you feel you've been able to develop as a coach because of being influenced by some of these masters of the game?
I think a big key is being able to get that library. And so now their experiences in games, I see it. It's almost in the way I lived it. And it's crazy when somebody will try to tell me a story about a John Jenkins game. And I'm like, oh, you're talking about the 1989 game. I've seen every play probably 100 times. Yeah. I think that's been big. But then actually getting those real life chances to be on the headset with June. And when I was younger, first around them, and I thought I, know everything at 24, 25. Every 20-year-old does.
Of course we do, yeah.
And I'm like, why is he doing that? And I thought this was it. And then as I got older, and I think I even sent him this email last year. I was like, June, you're like one of the smartest guys I know. Because now it kind of came full circle where June's mind was at that time. And, just continually to be around them. And, like you said, in those 70s, those guys like Jerry have seen every offense you can imagine. Oh, yeah. So when you say RPO, it's nothing new to them. They've dealt with that since forever. And they, boom, answer. You feel bad for these coaches that are getting shots at 30, especially on the defensive side, and they go play some team that is running the triple option like a Navy.
Yeah.
They're researching what to do because they don't have any experience against it. So being able to be with those guys and kind of grab that, it absolutely just helps me. No doubt.
Yeah. I mean, it's fantastic. And, we're blessed to have guys like that still coaching. I get sad sometimes when a guy that has so much to give to the game decides it's over, and because and then what ends up happening more often than not is they retire and it's like they wish they had not. Mm-hmm. A good example, regardless of offense, defense, was Tom Osborne. Mm-hmm. I mean, he retired and could have coached another 10 years easily. He went on and did so many other things. And I think about Coach Osborne because, I was at Kansas State coaching against his staff and all that. And it's like he exited out of the game when he was at the top of the game and could have kept it up. And some of the things he would have been able to do would have been monumental. And I'm sure Cornhusker fans, wish he stuck around. But, I know Frank Solich did a great job afterwards. But it was something that you have so much in this game if you're in it for the right reasons. And I believe to mentor, young men and to help them achieve dreams beyond even their wildest imagination and to find their life's calling if you're in college per se or high school, to help them on their path because the older coaches out there, sometimes people don't realize the wealth of knowledge they have, just like you have alluded to. And it's like, tap into those guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was your age, it was Tiger Ellison, and that connection sort of kept me going. I was like, you know what, I'm on a different path at that time. And I feel that that's, you have that as well, Would you say, this is sort of a divergence in this thing because run and shoot, and the other side of when you flip the coin over, although you said, oh, it's similar in many ways. We're talking about the air raid offense, right? Mm-hmm. And my run and shoot basis is what it is, and I spent 3 years with Mike Leach at Texas Tech, and that's the first time I really saw the air raid offense, And I think when we did that, it was something that I was able to learn from Mike a different way of seeing things in the run and shoot. So what to you are the differences in that?
Well, when you say air raid, I think you got to kind of watch yourself on that now in today's game because what air raid used to mean kind of in the 90s isn't what it is now. I mean, you're seeing a lot, especially in the Big 12. You're seeing these two tight or two back and, run game, all this split zone. And then when they fill the box, now we're just going deep. Yeah. A lot of 3 wide receiver sets. You see that, but, there is a lot of similarities if you go back to the basis. And the only offense that was even similar and where the air raid got started, and people don't realize this, was BYU. And they're the only, and at the time in the 80s, there's only 2 teams like them. It was Houston doing it one way, and then it was the air raid, or BYU doing it where Hal was getting his ideas from. So what Hal did was take that 2-back tight end, 2 wide receiver sets and started, hey, we don't have the tight end like BYU does. We don't have a Gordon or those great big BYU. Sure. So now, and so he started changing the personnel, but he was starting to attack via the air. And that's where I think the similarities are is we're not afraid to run the ball. There's no 3 yards in a cloud of dust here. We're going to attack you. I think a little bit of differences are air raid is more horizontal, run and shoot's vertical. Now, you're still trying to go through the air. You still got to develop a quarterback. There's just nuances, but in many ways, as far as attacking coverages, progressions, just full on concepts. Even with our 4 verticals we run, very similar to almost exactly how June's doing it, and Jenkins and everybody else. So more similarities than I think differences when you talk about the pure how Mummy Michael each way of doing things. Now, when you get off to their disciples who have kind of turned the wheel, that's completely different. It's not
they're going to put their twist on things. And, I think the air raid is a whole other conversation we'll have at some point. I just wanted to touch on that because you've been influenced by Hal. You've worked with Hal, and, we both know him, and you're obviously are very close to him in many ways. And yet another mentor that, he's the godfather of the air raid. Awesome, and gives you some insight there so you can draw these parallels, But the air raid is the hottest thing out there right now. As we close on some of the things we're talking about here, the run and shoot is almost like, I think it's like the Holy Grail. You know what I mean? It's like the Ark of the Covenant. It's something that's like so few. The knowledge base is so limited in that, even in this day and age of the internet, because like you and I have said, we look at this stuff, it's like, what is this? It's not even close. And so I think there are very few, as we've talked together earlier before we did this podcast, there's very few guys actually doing it. I mean, really doing it. And, there's less than 5, right, as we were saying before. So I think with that being said, who knows where that's going to go? Who knows? I mean, it could die, like the single wing did. I don't know, But then again, the single wing came back when Gus Malzahn started doing his stuff. So it all could come around, and there's some people out there that are doing this right now. And in this day and age, who would you say are the handful of guys that you would say, based on your definition of the run and shoot, are actually doing it right now in 2019 or so?
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 that I know of. And, you being one, June Jones in Hamilton, still applying the half rollout, all the things he does. And what Coach Rolovich just turned to, because before he wasn't doing it. And then this past season kind of took it by storm, caught a few teams off guard. Yeah. And other than U3 in the game of college football, I can't think of another team that's even trying to follow those principles.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, you wonder about that. It's almost like, you wonder if that group are dinosaurs or not. You don't know. Is it going to die out? Because at one point there was less than that. So you don't know. Where the air raid has been flourishing, the run and shoot is very limited in, I don't know, say purists, but proponents of what you would define as the run and shoot. Who knows? And I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, like you said, limited information. What's out there is wrong, so it benefits anybody that's trying to run it from defensive coordinators. I think Mike Leach has even said this too. Our whole offense is on the internet. Well, it's also all wrong, so please let them go look. It's going both ways. Is how, because anybody can go on a Wikipedia page and edit anything at any time. Same thing with a playbook. You can slap a logo on it and say, "Hey, look, this is Mike Leach's playbook from 2002," and people will believe it.
I have no idea.
So this is a coaching point. Always know your source. I think in general it is harder to coach the run and shoot than the air raid by far, just because all the complexities you got to go to do it. Air raid prides on being simple. That's what they do certain things only one way. They run certain formations only one way because they want more reps at one particular play, which is funny because that's how the run and shoot feels. We want more reps at this one particular play, but instead of it just being simple, we're whatever defense does is wrong. Boom, 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 boom. We're going to have all the answers. We're going to have the chalk last. So I think that has a big part into it is not just limited information, but just, well, we could do it this way and it's easier. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And people are kind of taking the easier way out with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
And you don't see those gaudy numbers anymore. Like those guys used to put up with 70, 80, and even 90 points, and Mouse is 105.
Yeah.
Getting in a different way. Mm-hmm. But,
Yeah. Wow. That's tremendous insight, AJ. And I think I've enjoyed this. How about you?
Yeah. No, this has been fun.
This will be great. And I know that we're connected forever in this game. And I think it's, as you move on, I know some really exciting things are coming up for you in the future. And we'll let people follow you on Twitter. How's that work? What is your Twitter handle?
It's AustinJames_7.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, fantastic. And we'll make sure everybody, we'll put some links down here to where they can get in touch with what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And we'll have a good time with this thing. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Now it's time for some tips and reminders, where we wrap up each episode with some information that you can utilize in your approach to optimize your life. Let's talk about what I consider one of our secret weapons at the last few places I've been in a way to optimize your coaching lifestyle, and that's by using essential oils on a regular basis. And, one of the things is I've just, in my background, my degree in college and so forth was in biology, and I've always been intrigued by systems and so forth. And when I was taking a look at some of these essential oils that were becoming a vogue, maybe for me about 6-7 years ago, I started to understand and go back and look at the history of essential oils and what they can do for us. So just a brief history of essential oils. Aromatic plants have long played an important role in human civilization. Although the uses of these essential oils have evolved over the years from perfumes to therapy and so forth, all these different ways, the basic principles remain the same. From the beginning of time, essential oils, these oils that have been extracted from aromatic plants, have been recognized as the most effective medicine known to man. And it's interesting to me that a lot of the medicine that has been created over time comes from the biochemistry of those essential oils that has been changed. And in pharmaceuticals, a lot of that has come from that. And when you think about it, as I was doing some research on this, they were used in Egypt years ago, oftentimes for preservation, mummification, and so forth. And then China used them in healing. And then being Greek, I did notice that Hippocrates, the father of medicine, used essential oils, and in one case, actually to fumigate the city of Athens to fight off a plague epidemic. So, today, scientists, physicians, researchers, and many individuals that are concerned with managing their own personal health have just begun to explore and discover some of the amazing benefits of what is called pure therapeutic grade essential oils. And when you take a look at that, these aren't the ones you would be able to find like in a health food store and so forth. But, what I would like to do is share with you one that in this time with everything that's going on, where people are on lockdown all over the country, and so you want to take care of yourself in a particular way. And one essential oil that I highly recommend is a blend, which means it is a variety of different oils that have been put together, and it's a blend called On Guard. Okay, so this is what it looks like right here, and On Guard is something I have used myself and in our football program. It's known as the Protective Blend. We use On Guard Wow. I'll tell you, we use it in our training room. We use it in our locker room as well as in our office complex. Every coach has a bottle of this in their office and they can diffuse it, put it into the air. And what's interesting about this particular blend of On Guard is that you can get so much out of this oil as you utilize this in your environment and also in your body. So I wanted to give you some quick facts on this, but this is actually the pure essential oil blend itself. And then I also keep around something here that would be like a roller ball version of this. And, it just has this deal here, and you can put it on your skin, and it goes right into your largest organ, which is your skin. And it helps you in many ways stay healthy and feel good about things. But this is On Guard, and what I want to do is give you some quick facts from a book and some research that I had been doing on this particular oil and how it can help you and why in the world you would want to use this at home and within your football program. Because quick facts on this, the oils in this blend have been studied for their strong abilities to kill harmful bacteria, mold, and viruses. All right, this blend can be diffused into the air or be used to clean and purify household surfaces. So when you think household surfaces, we use it in our locker room as a spray because there was a study done at Vanderbilt University, the medical school there, and the hospitals where they were using On Guard, and it was actually able to kill MRSA, on contact as it was being utilized to keep things clean and so forth. So we use this in our locker room. I know our athletic trainer used it. The last few athletic trainers I've been, last 3, have all utilized a blend of this protective blend called On Guard, and it has all types of different oils within the blend. It has a wild orange, it has a clove, cinnamon bark, and so forth. And this is all in a therapeutic way, something that is working to keep things fresh and clean in these environments. And I diffuse this stuff definitely in the locker rooms, and it has a nice smell to it. But the key is that the application of this is so good in helping us. And knock on wood, in every place I've been, we have not had a single case of MRSA, and it does deal with viruses and so forth. So do your own research on this. I mean, it has those oils in it. It also has rosemary in it and eucalyptus, and it's just the way that this works. So it can work topically and aromatically. So topically is you can put it on the skin like I just showed you there, or it can work from an aromatic way where you can diffuse this particular essential oil. But On Guard is fantastic. If you're interested in On Guard, you can click on the link here after this episode, right on the website. We'll have a link there, give you some more information if you choose to order the product or you just want to learn a little bit more about it. I want to thank you. In conclusion, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Manny Matsakis Show. If you're listening to this podcast, make sure to subscribe in iTunes, give us a rating, and comment on the show. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell up in the top corner, and you can get notifications when we release the next show. Feel free to comment below on a specific show, and then oftentimes within a Q&A session of another podcast, I will hit and get everybody caught up on any questions you may have in particular that show up there. If you'd like to get all kinds of updates, go to the website, mannymatsakis.com, where you'll be up to date on all the podcasts, the audio and video versions. You'll be able to see feature blog posts as they come up. You'll get those alerts, and then take a minute and subscribe with your email, and all you have to do is put your email in there, and then from that point you will get alerts every time we update the website.